One day after Democrats announced the articles of impeachment against President Trump, the inquiry continues to move swiftly as a full House vote on impeachment appears to be coming soon. Tonight, though, lawmakers will begin debating the two charges against the president. Nancy Cordes is on Capitol Hill. So, Nancy, what will things look like later today? This is the next step in the process.
Right. So the House Judiciary Committee is going to start debating these two articles of impeachment tonight. And this is a process that's going to last hours. The reason that they're starting tonight is because everyone on the committee, and there are 42 members, is entitled to an opening statement. So just the opening statements alone are going to last hours. They'll get through all of those tonight, then come back tomorrow to continue debating, setting up a final vote in the Judiciary Committee, probably sometime tomorrow afternoon, then sending those articles of impeachment to the floor for a full House vote early next week.
These two flimsy, pathetic, ridiculous articles of impeachment.
Campaigning in Pennsylvania, President Trump questioned Democrats' motives.
They're impeaching me, and there are no crimes. This has to be a first in history. They're impeaching me. You know why? Because they want to win an election, and that's the only way they can do it.
But the new articles of impeachment warn that the president will, quote, remain a threat to national security and the Constitution if allowed to remain in office.
The argument, why don't you just wait, amounts to this. Why don't you just let him cheat in one more election?
The first article of impeachment, abuse of power, alleges that President Trump openly and corruptly urged Ukraine to publicly announce investigations into his political opponent, former Vice President Joe Biden.
And when the president got caught, he committed his second impeachable act, obstruction of Congress.
That article accuses the president of directing the unprecedented, categorical, and indiscriminate defiance of the House investigation, with the Departments of State, Energy, and Defense refusing to produce a single document or record.
I think this is a clear, short, concise argument that the president abused his power.
Some Democrats, like Congressman Mike Quigley of Illinois, wanted more serious charges, such as bribery.
Are you satisfied with where the party has ended up when it comes to these articles of impeachment?
I am. Look, this isn't easy. It's complicated, layered, and textured. You're trying to explain legal matters to the American people.
The president has pushed for a robust defense in the Republican-led Senate. But some in his party don't want to drag the process out.
I think the prospect of calling witnesses, in my view, seems unlikely.
All right, Nancy, are you hearing that most Democrats are actually pretty pleased with how narrow the scope is, that it's just two articles of impeachment and it doesn't necessarily sort of reach back to some things that might have popped up in the Mueller investigation?
Sure, because while there are Democrats who thought that there could have been 3 or 4 articles of impeachment, that their party could have been more aggressive, at the end of the day, what was most important to them was that there be articles of impeachment in the first place. And so the fact that they do now have 2 articles that they can defend, they can explain, that's good enough for most of the Democrats that I've spoken to. And, you know, they're now looking forward to passing these articles in the House and then going home for the holidays and explaining their votes to their constituents, which is going to be tricky for some Democrats who come from swing districts where they know that they will have some constituents who are angry about what they've done.
So, you know, by and large, the Democrats' sort of messaging has been pretty single and focused throughout this whole thing. But there were some sort of departures. And there was a while there where, Nancy Pelosi was using the word bribery. And, many people were talking about the fact that perhaps the public can understand the concept of bribery because it's a clear-cut crime. But it seems like the party has pivoted away from that. It certainly wasn't included in these articles of impeachment. Is there a reason for that, do you think?
Yes, I think that there was a debate both within the party and within the legal community about whether the president's actions truly constituted bribery as it was understood by the founders when they drafted the Constitution. And at the end of the day, Democrats essentially decided to play it safe and to stick with articles of impeachment that there wasn't much debate about, at least not within their own party. I mean, obstruction of Congress, every Democrat can make a pretty strong case that if the president ignored or blocked legal subpoenas, didn't hand over any documents, told all of his top aides not to testify, they can make a pretty good case that he obstructed Congress. And so, this is just a strategic decision that was made by Democrats to keep it narrow and to employ some of the language, frankly, that has been used in past articles of impeachment.
So we know that when it came to the House vote to move forward with the impeachment inquiry, at least 2 Democrats voted not to move forward. We know that there are some Democrats that are in kind of districts that the president won last time, and so you might consider them somewhat vulnerable. But, with more information coming forward, one could guess that perhaps there are Republicans who may be swayed. Based on what you've seen so far, do you expect tonight's debate to change anyone's mind?
I think at this point, people's opinions are pretty baked in, Anne-Marie, as you would suspect. And so I don't expect that we'll see much, if any, movement either on the Democratic side or on the Republican side. What we'll likely see in the House Judiciary Committee is a straight party line vote after some very ferocious debate. I know you've seen a lot of clashes in the House Judiciary Committee at the last couple of hearings, and tonight and tomorrow in what's called a markup, this debate over the articles, that is going to continue. The 2 sides are going to be marshaling their most impassioned arguments. At the end of the day, it probably will end up being a party line vote in the House Judiciary Committee. And then I've been told by Democrats that they don't want this to be the last thing they do before they head home for the holidays. They don't want to vote on impeachment and then say, see ya, happy holidays. Mm-hmm. They want to be able to leave town on a high note. And so it looks, although we haven't been told for sure, it looks like the House would probably vote on these articles of impeachment early next week, let's say Tuesday, and then they could pass some of the other more bipartisan measures that might leave everyone feeling a little better as they head out of town.
Right. To that point, the president has been sort of lobbing out zingers at the Democratic Party, one of them being the do-nothing Democrats. And Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell kind of echoed the president yesterday. He criticized Democrats after the announcement of the articles of impeachment. He criticized them on Twitter, saying, that they have an impeachment obsession and it's taking away from the legislative goals like avoiding another shutdown, securing military funding, and other bipartisan efforts. But what did Senator McConnell say about taking up this bipartisan trade deal? Because it certainly appeared as if yesterday Nancy Pelosi was attempting to diminish or weaken that argument by saying, look, we passed the USMCA. Here you have it. And we did it in a bipartisan manner. Is Mitch McConnell interested in passing it?
He is, but what he would argue is that Speaker Pelosi took her sweet time negotiating this USMCA deal. He would say stalling. She would say she was holding out for a better deal for labor. But whatever the rationale, the House is not going to pass it until next week. It'll probably be one of those big bipartisan measures that they pass right before they leave town. And so McConnell says that does not give him any time to pass it in the Senate before the Senate leaves town, especially because they have to do some pretty basic things that are already on the calendar as well, like fund the government. And so what he has said is that he is going to have to wait until next year, start of the year, January. But there's something else pretty big coming up in January, and that is a Senate impeachment trial. And so that is going to come first, he said. They'll do that right when they get back, and then pass USMCA.
All right, Nancy. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.